boop, booby doop. It's almost that time.
Good morning, everyone. It's time to start.
Good morning.
Happy Sunday. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to everybody in person and out there on YouTube, Facebook, or, Zoom. Let's stand and get started with our first two community songs by Billy. Thank you, Billy.
You're welcome. Good morning, everybody. We have sunshine.
And exciting and flowers. Do everything I need to know again. You know it by now. Everything I need to know about what lies before me. Everything I need to know about what lies before me is available to me. Is available to me. The mind of God within me. Everything I need to do about what lies before me. Everything I need to do about what lies before me is available to me. Is available to me. The mind of God within me. Everything I need, be at peace about what lies before me. Everything I need, be at peace about what lies before me. It's available to me. The mind of God within me. Everything I need to know about what lies before me. Everything I need to know about what lies before me is available to me. It's available to me. Through the mind of God within me. Through the mind of God within me. Through the mind of God within me. What's up? All right, next song. Can we do another one? Oh, okay. This is Holy, Holy Way. Oh, let me love in a holy, holy way. Let me love in a holy, holy way. Oh, let me know that love is all around. Let me know that love is all around. Oh, let me know that love is all around. Let me know
Thank you, Billy. Welcome everyone who's joined us on YouTube, Facebook, and Zoom since we've been singing. I'm Reverend Julia Robles-Scott, and I'm so happy to be your minister today. It's my pleasure to remind us of who we are. We are a radically inclusive, spiritually progressive, supportive community that celebrates the diversity of creation. We aspire to live authentic spiritual lives through a practical application of the teachings of the science of mind. We engage in sacred practices that uplift our spirit, deepen our awareness, and ignite our soul's self-expression. We demonstrate active compassion to ourselves, each other, and the world. We experience meaningful contribution through giving generously of our time, talents, and treasures, and we intentionally promote our community and teachings. So welcome, everyone. This is our time of announcements, and I just want to remind us that there are purple sheets in the seat backs. If you would like a prayer, just fill that out and put it in the brown box to the left of the door there. And also, Rev Lanny is here to do prayer with you afterwards. And let's see. There's also a volunteer opportunity to weed eat. If anyone has a weed eater and would like to come and weed eat, that would be great. Although it makes me sad to cut down the dandelions. Let's see. All right. If you're here for the first time and you don't mind raising your hand, please do, because we'd love to welcome you. Welcome. So glad to have you. Glad you're here. All right, and now I'd like to invite our Board of Trustees person who would like to share the announcements for us. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Julia. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. All right, my name is Diana Carolyn, and I'm on the Board of Trustees. I'm not sure what my position is, but this week's announcement will appear on your screen behind me, and if you're joining via live stream, there's also a handout for those here in the room if you want to pick it up. If you want one, and I forgot to give you guys one, sorry, but I'll bring one to you if you want an announcement. So please remain today after the service. We're going to have our community meeting. Food will be provided. If you're going to join us online, then we'll be Zooming with our regular link. So we're going to take a break and eat and then come back at 11:30 or so. Our Manifestation Mastery Discussion Group will continue to meet on Tuesdays for the evening session only, and that's 5:30 to 6:30. Our Science of Mind Study Group that meets on Thursdays will now also only meet from 5:30 to 6:30. And stay tuned for our upcoming forgiveness workshops, as well as Healing Circle and Book Study Circle. So lots of new things coming. And the participants of the Revealing Newness workshop on April 2nd will meet again on Sunday, May 7th after service. And please bring your worksheets to the meeting. Our own Deanne Donnelly is a featured artist at the Center for the Arts. Voices of our story, shifting perceptions, bridging divides, showing now through May 13th. See the flyer on the glass case on the front porch, and she's a fabulous photographer, so go check her out. Join Judy for our Sacred Circle dance this Friday on the 28th at 10:30 to noon at Condon Park in Grass Valley. Contact Judy if you have any questions. Her phone number is on your announcement handout and under our website under the events section. And earlier this week, we emailed a request to complete an online community survey to get your thoughts and ideas for the Sierra Center as we embark on our new journey of our new chapter of collaboration and co-creation as a community. So if you haven't filled it out yet, please fill it out at your earliest convenience. If you didn't get the email survey, let us know and we'll send you a link because we really want your feedback. And please stay after the meeting to provide input. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Oh, wonderful. Now we get to begin our inclusion candlelighting ritual. So our wonderful practitioner of today is Rev Lanny. And we begin by lighting the first candle for the shamanic traditions. We light the second candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the third candle for Taoism, honoring the path of ultimate reality, the natural way. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the fifth candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the middle way and path of compassion. We light the sixth candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the teachings of Jesus as the path of love, forgiveness, and healing by the presence within. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the eighth candle for the religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the ninth candle for all forms of New Thought teachings, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles of love and law. We light the 10th candle for absolute inclusivity, affirming that all are welcome and celebrated here. And we light this final candle honoring infinity of oneness as all creation, seen and unseen. Thank you, Rev Lanny. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Billy for our next song.
All good, all good. All good, all good. Holy, holy. All good, all good. Holy, holy. All in my mind, my heart and my soul. Let me know all is good. Holy, holy.
Thank you, Billy.
Welcome.
And now it's that time of our service for Inward Shift, and I'm going to turn it over to Rev Lanny.
Thoughts?
Good morning. Great to see all of you. Each week we explore a different value of this community, and the value for today is gratitude. And I would like you to just spend a moment to think back on something that you saw this morning that was beautiful. Maybe it was just the sun in the sky after all of our atmospheric rivers. Maybe it was the daffodils or the tulips that are blooming at the roundabout on East Main, or just the red buds blooming. We are so blessed to live in an area with so much beauty. And so we look at the beauty and are grateful for it, because we know there's a lot of folks who live in places with cement, where the only growth is something that emerges through the cement. And that shows that life wants to be lived. That demonstrates, I mean, even in the driveway on the house next door, there are all kinds of little wildflowers just coming up through the gravel. So we're just grateful for life. Grateful for life and all the beauty that is available to us, especially here. So that is our practice for today, is gratitude, being grateful, because it does expand your life, because when you're looking for things to be grateful for, you'll see more of them, and it expands that generative energy to be bringing more to be grateful for into our lives. So I am now going to ring the bell. God bless you. I am going to ring the bell 3 times. Then we will do 3 ohms, which is sort of the vibration of creation. And then we will go into a 5-minute meditation. And I will bring us out with an affirmative prayer. Breathing in, we remember that which breathes us, that there is an infinite intelligence that created everything out of itself. So all of these wonderful functions of our bodies, this breath, this sight, this smell, this hearing, this digestion which transforms matter into energy without our having to think about it. This is an infinite miracle that we take for granted every day, and yet it is a miraculous thing that life is here on our beautiful planet. So unlike anything else that we have found in the universe. So we know that life has blessed us with itself, and that each of us are incarnations of that one energy, of that one self, of that one mind of the Creator, and that our thoughts are creative as well. So I know that this time together is blessed as we open to that infinite mind to guide and to open us to the wonderful talk by Reverend Madalyn, to the music by Billy, to all of the people who are in service to us today. We're just grateful for coming together in that realization of the one mind being made manifest in, through, and as each one of us. And that allows us to be vulnerable, to be who we are, to be open to one another and to the infinite gifts of the Spirit of God manifesting through each one of us. And so with great gratitude for this good that I know is unfolding in this moment for each and every one of us, with love and joy, release my word into that law of life that responds by corresponding to this energy, to this, the emotion behind the words, and makes them manifest. And we affirm this together as we say, and so it is. And now it is time for our affirmative, our affirmation for the week. And I'm going to say it first, and then you are invited to say it along with me the second time. I allow myself to see and be seen. I allow myself to see and be seen. And so it is. Oh, and now some more music from Billy Benson.
Okay. It's a song called Thoughts I wrote with Kelly some years ago. And then we find thoughts of distance fall behind. Eye to eye we build thoughts of emptiness I feel. Thoughts of
the service over to Rev Madalyn for our talk.
Thank you, Julia. Okay. I can see you out there. I want you to know that. I'm looking at all of you. Oh, and I need to put my glasses on. So talk about vulnerability. I can't see what I'm supposed to say. Although, do I need to see it? I'm not sure, because I deviate. You know how I am. I go rogue. Well, some of you know how I am. Some of you don't know yet. You'll know at the end of this. So I want to remind us, first off, that we are, this is according to Ernest Holmes, you are an eternal being, now on the pathway of endless unfoldment, never less, but always more yourself. So our ground of being is that we are eternal beings. We are divine people, humans having divine beings having a human experience. And so as you stand up here, as I stand up here, I don't know what's going to happen next. I prepared, but that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. I am vulnerable, and I want to see all of you, the love that you are. It's better this way. And I want you to see me as a divine being doing the best you can. Because vulnerability is a state of being. We are all vulnerable. It's not like you have a choice. There's uncertainty, we need to be courageous, and we need to take risks. So being vulnerable is a fact of life, and it's not just for us. And Reverend Julia, the last 2 Sundays, has set some groundwork for us with the vulnerability, with knowing that we are vulnerable. And this is just so perfect that we would have vulnerability as the theme for this month, considering how many layers of vulnerability we're experiencing. I don't know about all of you, but when I got up in the morning several times this last winter, I felt really vulnerable because we had like 5 feet of snow. And some of you had less, but some of you also lost your electricity. And when we lost our electricity, there went the water. Except that we had a generator until the generator died. So it brought vulnerability to me at a deeper level this last winter. I don't know if any of you experienced it. I'm seeing some heads going like this. Yes. Because, that's a fact of life. And Madalyn Wade said this: when we were children, we used to think that when we grow up, we would no longer be vulnerable. But to grow up is to accept vulnerability. To be alive is to be vulnerable. It's not like you get to vote. You do not get to vote. You are vulnerable. You are vulnerable on an emotional level, on a physical level, on a social level. And all of those things bring strength, and they vary. It's a variance. So sometimes you'll feel vulnerable, and other times you won't. But you are actually vulnerable the whole time. Are you deluded or not? So when you come into this world as a little baby, an infant, you are vulnerable. Love, care, you are dependent on others for everything. And it does kind of go up from there. Because then when you're 2, you can talk about it and say stuff. But it goes up and down like this. So you're fragile, needing care. And then when we're adults, I'm speaking for myself, I had this feeling that I was pretty invincible. I had control over things. I knew what to do. I had a handle on it. I was cocky. Was I deluded? Absolutely. I did not realize. but I was opening to life, opening to love and connections, and that's vulnerability. Have you ever had to ask somebody out? Hello? That's vulnerable. Have you ever told someone you love them? Be the first one to say it. That's vulnerable. And then now, as I'm growing older, I'm complaining about the increase in maintenance for my body. That's vulnerability. That's like, Madalyn, you just, okay. No, it's probably not a good idea to jump up on that ladder. And you need to hold on. There's all these different things that it's like, oh, things have changed, things have shifted. And you're vulnerable in a different way, or at least you understand now that you're vulnerable in that new way. It's like, oh, I was always vulnerable. That's just the way it is. It's whether I'm sharing it and going for it or not. So how vulnerable do you want to be? How much do you want to live? How much love do you want in your life? How do you want to show up? How do you want to be seen? This last week has been like a journey because I was like, my brain, whenever I do a talk, the week before, Gary has to live through this because I'm like, all these little things are going in my head. It's like, da-da-da-da-da. And it's a little crazy making. But one of the things that came to me as I woke up yesterday morning was, who do I really admire who has been vulnerable on a scale that I can't even imagine? And Oprah Winfrey came to my mind. She came from poverty in Mississippi. She lived with her grandmother, her mother, her father. She was all over the place. She came from what I would, in my life, would be nothing. And she was so vulnerable and shared so much of herself, her truth, who she really is. She went all out to share the love, the light. And she is beloved by so many people. She has taught so many lessons to so many people because she lived out her vulnerability. She accepted it. She didn't hide it. She was transparent. This is real. This is authentic. This is me. This is me. And I love me or don't love me, but this is me. So, thank you, Julia. So it's the risk is amazing, and not taking the risk is even more scary because then you don't live your life. Grabbing on to it. Your leading edge. What is there for you? So this morning I woke up with this realization that a lot of you obviously lived through this too. Back in 2000 or so, Gary and I decided to move up here to Nevada City, Grass Valley, so we did. And then my mother went into hospice, and I went down to Thousand Oaks, and I would spend 2 weeks there, come home for the weekend, and go back and forth, back and forth. So that was huge for me. My mother raised me. I love her dearly, still. And then, September 2001, the World Trade Centers, and more. It wasn't just the World Trade Center. So the invulnerability that we may have felt as the United States was swept away. It was gone. The vulnerability that came up for all of us. I can still feel it when I was watching the television with my mother, who was horrified, who said, "Let me out of this world. I don't want to be here anymore." And then she did die. And she wanted to go at that point. She was done. She had had cancer. And so then I felt really vulnerable because at some level I felt like I was an orphan. It was a huge shift. So I was supported with love by my husband, thank God, and my sister and the rest of my family. And we are all incredibly vulnerable. But life goes on. Because risking not loving is not worth it. Everything you love, you will lose. And you love it anyway. So then, after my mom passed, Gary and I decided to keep on living. And one of the things that was important is that we had come to the Sierra Center for positive living back then in Seaman's Lodge. Some of you go back that far, some of you don't. So we started coming to the center that long ago. And life goes on. So we were out to lunch, and I was standing in the lobby of this restaurant, and somebody picked my pocket out of my purse. And they got various other things that I don't remember, but they got my passport, my identity, because we were getting ready to go on a trip to the British Virgin Islands. So they took my passport, and I was devastated because I was already so vulnerable, and that was just one more thing. But everything worked out okay. And we did get in the car, which is another really vulnerable thing we do all the time, getting in a car. We drove to the airport, and we got on an airplane, which is another vulnerable thing that a lot of you guys do. And we flew to the British Virgin Islands. And they did let me in. I don't know, there was some paperwork. That was in the old days, where you had paperwork, and there was actually rules that you could probably massage. And that's not true anymore, because we clamped down because now we're more vulnerable. So anyway, so here we're in British Virgin Islands. So what Gary and I do is we're renting a sailboat, and we're going bareboat sailing. That means it's just the two of us on a 40-foot sailboat. We actually knew what we were doing back then. But we're still vulnerable because you're sitting in a bunch of water on a boat, and stuff happens to boats. Anyway, so just to wrap this up a little bit, then what we did next is we decided to go scuba diving. Well, that's no risk to scuba dive. That's not risky. No, it's like no big deal. We did actually know how to do it. So another boat came to get us and took us to a dive spot. So this was like the best dive in my whole life, because we dove on the wreck of the Rhone. We dove on a shipwreck. So all through this whole story, it's like vulnerable, vulnerable, vulnerable. It's like, but we reached out to grab life. Yeah, we reached out to grab life, to really, truly live. And we all do this on our own levels. Every time you love a beloved pet, since we have a beloved pet here today, you're taking a risk, you're being vulnerable. I've had beloved animals pass away. Talk about being vulnerable. But I wouldn't give up the years of love for those few months of despair or grief, because it's healing grief, it's deep grief, it's loving grief. And the same thing's having friends and having a community like this one, having people that you've known forever, it seems like. And being in community in this level, or like a circle, a book circle, a soul collage circle, or whatever it is. But you've got love, you've got belonging, and you've got joy that comes forth because you do these things, because you allow yourself to be vulnerable. So I'd like you to take a minute and think about a time, when in your past when you were vulnerable and you knew it, and that the love, and it could be recent, it could be a long time ago, but what is one of your vulnerability stories I'm going to give you a minute to think about it while I get something to blow my nose with. Yeah. Yes, we all have these stories, these sacred experiences that are possible because we're vulnerable. And things are changing so fast. We didn't used to be vulnerable on the internet. Now you have to watch out for scams. Or, oh, this is worse. They come along and do an update to one of your programs. And they update stuff and they move stuff around, and then I don't know where it is. I get really vulnerable, upset about that. Yeah, yeah. It's like, what? They're moving. Yeah, it's like, well, now I don't know how to do something. It's like I knew how to do it yesterday, but they updated. Yeah, bad words. And then climate change. It's not just us that's vulnerable. It's all the plants, the animals, the planet. So when we're deluded, we don't think there's a problem. And I don't want to be a downer, but I want to be real. Those of you who've looked at vulnerability at all have run across this woman named Brené Brown. I recommend there's on Netflix, there's a program for an hour and a half, I think it's The Call to Courage, where she's given a talk. She's also got TED Talks out there on vulnerability. But she has this one quote: "We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known. And when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from that offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection." That's what we're here for. We're here for that. And I feel vulnerable because I can't see the clock because that light blind. Okay. You know, it's funny. It's little things, little vulnerabilities, little remembrances. And now the other thing about, and she goes into all sorts of stuff, which I recommend you go to Netflix if you have it and see it. But she talks about trust. Does trust come first or does vulnerability come first? I would say that they're interwoven and that you're careful where you're vulnerable. You build that trust, that respect, that confidence that you're enveloped in love. That's why sometimes small groups are really cool. And that's why this center does small groups as well as the large gatherings. Because it's very important. You cannot do life alone and do it really well. You need to be vulnerable. You need to be connected with other people. From my point of view. So I'm busy telling you what I believe. And you get to vote, you get to choose. You get to choose. So one of the things that I feel is going on right now is this center is in a vulnerable spot. We are in a fragile spot as a community because there's been big changes. Now, have we been through this before? Absolutely yes. And we've come forward with genuine caring and sharing our treasures, our talents, our time, and that's what it takes to build community. So we're in this big transition right now, and that's why the community meeting after this service is important, because it's a change, it's an evolution, it's a recreation, it's a rebirth. And I went back to when I was an infant. I didn't realize this at the time, but I was very, very vulnerable. And so right now we're being infants again. We're getting to be reborn, rebirthed, redone. And so the first thing that happens with that, some of you may be familiar with Bill Bridges' work, The first thing that happens in that kind of a transition is endings. So that there are things that have been lost, things that have left our lives. Reverend Rafe and Deborah are gone, and some of the other stuff, some of the other people that were connected to them chose not to come back. Normal, totally normal. And people that haven't been around have come back. Totally normal. And we get to co-create what's next. Because we're in that nebulous, we're in that cocoon right now. We don't know what's going to be next. We don't know whose energy and whose love and whose light is showing up. And we don't know. We just don't know. We're in that in-between time, that unknown. And sometimes we go backwards. Sometimes we'll go back to the grief of change or something else. That, it's like, it could be all sorts of things. Jeff Wright and his band left. People grieve to that. There's change constantly happening. It's just how aware are we of it. And then there's the new beginning. Because there's always, hello, hey, wait a second, things are different around here. I really like it. I can count on things. I know this isn't going to change right away. It'll change, but not necessarily right away. So all that's happening. So we don't know right now what this community is going to look like, what it means, what it could mean to you in the future. We get to co-create it. So take a second here. I'll give you a minute or so. And think about this question. What are your dreams or aspirations for being in sacred community? What are your dreams or aspirations for being in sacred community? Because no matter what, you will be giving and you will be receiving. And you will be vulnerable and you will be loved. Whew. So I'd encourage everyone to stay after for the visioning and the meeting. And one other thing that I want for myself and all of you is to have no regrets at the end of your life. To have been vulnerable, been full out there, be seen, so that you can feel that you've fully lived. Been fully seen. And you can't do that all by yourself at home. Oh, unless you're on Zoom, maybe. See, nowadays, it's more possible. We used to do these talks, and nobody would ever see them again. And now, oh God, they're on Zoom, or they're on YouTube or whatever. It's like, what? So I try not to screw up, because I feel more vulnerable, because it has a life after this moment. It's constant changing. That technology stuff is rough. It's hard. Yeah. And I live with someone who's a genius with it. And you're not going anywhere, are you, Gary? But yes, one day, Yes, one day he will, or I will. And I have that vulnerability, and I love him full out. Because it's totally worth it. And so will grief be. So will grief be. So, here's a question again. What experience that calls for vulnerability and entails risk would you regret at the end of your life if you didn't go for it? Where do you long to be seen? What experience that calls for vulnerability and entails some risk would you regret at the end of your life if you didn't go for it? Where do you long to be seen? And the answer is for you. to one last thing that came to me this morning. And I came up with the quote, but I couldn't come up with who said it, and then I was delighted when I found out who said it. Honesty and transparency make you vulnerable. Be honest and transparent anyway. People are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Love them anyway. Mother Teresa. So love yourself enough to be vulnerable. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. So I'm going to invite us to stand for our prosperity affirmation. And we'll say it together. I give this gift with love and joy from a consciousness of abundance. Divine love blesses and prospers all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. You may be seated.
And Billy will play us another song. Thank you, Billy.
This is a song my friend Brian Lambert wrote. And we're going to do a concert this summer here, coming up, or maybe in October, we're not sure. Anyway, it's called The Muse, and it's about the music spirit inspiring him to write songs and how they, anyway, it goes like this.
All of my life, I've had a dream to sing you my song into your life, into your heart, into your mind, into your soul. Never swept by the wind, caught in the gift of the music you sent into my life, into my heart, into my mind, into my soul. Tied to the mast of my life, I hear the sirens call, on a course not changing at all. Break those changing winds, open hearts do attend. Vessels receive glory to wend into your lives, into your hearts, into your minds, into your soul. Oh, there's new lights gather round, rhythms proceed, the stories pass down into your lives, into your hearts, into your minds, into your soul. I'm casting nets on the oceans of dreams, I'm harvesting the muse, rising up to the moment where she, my hands and voice to use, and from a realm of light, she's cast down a spell. Into my life, into my heart, into my mind, into my soul, soul, soul.
Thank you, Billy. That was beautiful. This is Billy's last time singing this month, and I just got to throw it out there. Shall we invite him back? Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your offerings. We are a tithing church, and these offerings are tithed out to our community partners to bless the world. So I'm going to pray on the offerings right now. So knowing that there is a divine law called the law of reciprocity, I know that these gifts that have been given are also circling back and blessing each giver. I give thanks for the abundance of this center and the abundance of each person that belongs in this community. And I know that as we continue to give, we are blessed beyond measure. And so I give thanks for this opportunity to come together as a community and be a tithing community. And I just say thank you, God, for all the blessings. And so it is. Let's see, reminders. The thing that's coming to mind is remember to bring your worksheets for our completion of our workshop on the 7th of May. Also, of course, we're having the meeting afterwards. And thank you to Juanita, Diana, Rev Lanny, Rev Madalyn, Billy, everyone else, Hillary, everyone who's helped make this center possible. For the Board of Trustees, thank you for all of your wonderful support and bringing food today. So thank you all. So what are you taking away with you today from our time together?
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability, all right, yeah. Gratitude. Love. Joy. Empathy. Thank you. Courage. All right. Strength through vulnerability. Yep, that's the way it works. Harmony and community. Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to invite us to stand up for our benediction. As we say together, something wonderful is happening as me right now. Just testing you. No. It's this thing called life. It is this thing called vulnerability. It is this thing called community. I know it. I feel it. I sense it. Because I am it. And so it is. And now for our closing song. Thank you.
All right, we're going to sing it again. Bob Dylan. Back in the hippie days, so we're doing it again. We're having a new revolution. Come gather round me, wherever you go, and lay down the waters around you. Oh, and it's said that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. Every time you heard say amen, oh, you better start singing. I'll sing like a stone. Time to get away again.
who gets hurt, maybe he would restore. There's a battle outside and it's raging. There's some take your windows, rattle your walls. The times they are changing. Our mothers and fathers throughout the land will criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are waiting on your command. You're rolling rapidly aching. So get out of the new one if you can lend a hand. For the times they are changing. United and strong.